Hey, curious soul, drop me a line. Where on this spinning globe are you tuning in from? Are you sipping tea in London or chilling in the outback? Let's turn the comments into a global map. And while you're at it, click that share button like it owes you money. The audio recording was never intended for Mason's ears. Frozen in place just beyond the kitchen threshold, Mason Decker stood silently, listening. His wife, Danny, sat at the breakfast bar, her back turned, chuckling into her phone. A few feet away, their son, Eli, 7 years old, sat at the table, focused on his coloring book. That laugh, sharp, dismissive, was one Mason recognized all too well. It was the laugh she reserved for mocking him behind his back. "No, seriously, Travis," she said with a cruel smile in her voice. "He just limps around like some washed-up stray dog. Your guys at the gym started calling him the gimpy mascot. It's actually pathetic." She absent-mindedly spun her wedding ring around her finger. Once a gesture of anxiety, it now felt more like taunting. "I can't fake this anymore," she said. "This isn't a marriage. It's a charade." A familiar ache burned through Mason's right leg, the same leg ripped apart by a blast during a narcotics operation 3 years earlier. That injury had ended his career in law enforcement and forced him to lean financially on Danny, whose rise as a fitness influencer had made her the family's breadwinner. And now she was weaponizing the very wound that derailed his life. "Dad?" Eli's small voice cut through the haze. The boy looked up, crayon poised midair. "Are you okay?" Mason managed a gentle smile and ruffled his son's hair. "Yeah, buddy. Keep going with your masterpiece." But something inside him had shifted. The fog of prescription drugs and the dull rhythm of routine living lifted in an instant, like a match striking against old instincts. Mason Decker, the cop, the investigator, was waking up. That evening, Danny served dinner with the same polished expression she wore for her online audience. Their once modest home had been transformed into a showroom of granite countertops and mood lighting, all designed for her brand's aesthetic. Yet the warmth was gone, replaced by calculated backdrops and influencer perfection. "Mason," she said without looking up, eyes locked on the stream of likes pouring into her latest workout video. "We need to talk after Eli goes to bed." The irony wasn't lost on him. Her entire platform promoted truth and transparency. Later that night, after reading to Eli and kissing his forehead goodnight, Mason walked into the bedroom to find Danny already inside. She'd changed into glossy silk pajamas, the ones she often wore during her nightly live streams. The glare from her ring light cast harsh shadows across her features. "I've been thinking," she began, her tone unnervingly rehearsed. "Maybe we should take a break? Just some time apart. Figure out where we stand." Mason lowered himself slowly onto the edge of the bed they'd shared for nearly 10 years. "What kind of break are we talking about?" "I was going to take Eli to my sister's in Charlotte." "Just for a little while," she said, tapping her nails on her phone. "Give you time to get your head on straight." She delivered it like a logistics update. No emotion, no hesitation. "I already spoke to the school," she added. "They're okay with a short-term transfer." Mason's stomach turned. This wasn't a conversation. It was a plan. One she'd clearly been organizing while he struggled to manage pain and navigate disability. "And what happens to us?" he asked quietly. That was when she finally looked at him. Her expression was empty. "There hasn't been an us for a long time, Mason. You just didn't want to face it." Sleep was impossible that night. Hours later, he made his way downstairs to the converted closet he used as a home office, a cramped space filled with dusty keepsakes from his days on the force. He dug through the clutter, hospital bills, insurance denials, folders of case files, until he found it. The old surveillance gear, buried but not forgotten. He picked up the GPS tracker, small, magnetic, still functional. He had swiped it quietly on his last day, clearing out his desk at the department. As soon as it was in his hand, the muscle memory returned like an old reflex. By 3 a.m., he was crouched in the driveway, crouching behind Danny's Range Rover. One swift motion, and the device clicked into place on the axle. Quiet. invisible. If she had secrets, he was going to uncover them. The next morning, answers arrived. While Danny was showering, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Mason hadn't meant to look, but his eyes fell on it anyway. And there it was. Message after message from Travis Colt, the gym owner she'd been partnering with on branded content, joint workouts, and nutritional products. Almost there. Soon it'll just be us. The lawyer says once we prove he's left the home, it's a done deal. Can't wait for our life to finally begin. Everything's lined up. You, me, Eli, we're ready. Mason's hands quivered as he captured screenshots of the incriminating messages. His wife wasn't merely walking away. She was orchestrating a future where he didn't exist at all. Over the next several days, Mason observed the collapse of his marriage the way a veteran investigator would dissect a case, carefully, methodically, and without illusion. The GPS tracker painted a stark contrast to Danny's polished lies, extended workout sessions that didn't add up, errands that led to legal offices, and property tours in Charlotte disguised as sisterly visits. It wasn't just about where she went, it was the consistency that revealed her true intentions. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she was supposedly training at Grit Fit Gym for hours, but the building was officially closed for deep cleaning during those windows. Yet her car always sat parked out front. One Thursday evening, Mason drove by and saw a light glowing in a back office. Peering through a narrow gap in the blinds, he saw Danny wrapped in a close, unmistakably affectionate embrace with Travis Colt. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a full substitution of the life they had shared. Remaining inside his vehicle, legally stationed along the curb, Mason raised his old telephoto lens and captured a series of crisp images, his instincts as a detective clicking into place without hesitation. That same weekend, while Danny performed a cheerful Instagram live workout from their backyard, Mason quietly made a choice that would change everything. He drove to the downtown office of Patricia Hawks, a feared and respected divorce attorney in Asheville, known for her strategic prowess. Hawks was everything Danny wasn't, direct, shrewd, and cold when the job called for it. As she sorted through the folder Mason handed over, screenshots, location data, high-resolution photographs, she studied the contents like a surgeon analyzing scans before an operation. "She's certainly been active," Hawks said flatly, spreading the evidence across her desk. The documents included GPS logs, text message records legally obtained from their shared devices, and irrefutable photos. But one page in particular drew her focus. She tapped her pen on a bank statement Mason had highlighted. "She's moving funds into accounts solely in her name," Hawks observed. "She's keeping up appearances for now, but she's clearly laying the groundwork for a clean break." Mason leaned in. "Can we stop her from taking Eli?" "We may not be able to prevent it outright," Hawks replied, "but we can level the playing field. North Carolina still observes fault-based divorce law. Adultery matters here. It can influence custody decisions and asset division." She reclined in her leather chair, her eyes calculating. "Your wife thinks she's several moves ahead, but what she doesn't know is, we're reading the entire board." "What do you need from me?" Mason asked. "Keep recording everything. Stay calm, and whatever you do, don't confront them yet," she instructed. "Let them believe they're still winning." Playing the part of the unaware husband became the most grueling task Mason had ever undertaken. He maintained a smile during breakfast, kissed Danny goodbye each morning, and helped Eli build Lego castles every night. But beneath that practiced calm, he was quietly assembling a legal strike capable of dismantling Danny's entire narrative. The GPS continued to be his most powerful tool. Those Tuesday sessions weren't just romantic rendezvous. Travis was giving Danny tactical advice on how to paint Mason as unstable. They were drafting a narrative where Mason was emotionally broken, financially unreliable, and unfit to parent. Everything came to a breaking point on a Wednesday afternoon. Mason had just buckled Eli into his car seat after school pickup when his son casually dropped a bombshell. "Travis said we might get a new house soon," Eli said, swinging his feet. "One with a pool and a big yard, but he said you might not come because your leg is hurt." It wasn't just about winning custody anymore. They were setting the stage to erase him entirely from Eli's life. That night, Mason made a move. While Danny was showering, he accessed her laptop and uncovered everything. There were draft court filings, temporary custody petitions, restraining order templates citing alleged mental health issues, and financial documents claiming Mason had made no real contribution to the household. She was planning to serve him that Friday, catch him off guard, have him legally removed before he could respond. With only 48 hours left, Mason went into overdrive. By Thursday, he had gathered the final critical pieces. Bank statements showing Danny funneling shared funds into private accounts. Text threads between her and Travis discussing how to influence the court's view on custody. Photos of Travis's truck parked in their driveway during times Danny had claimed to be alone. But the final blow, the piece of evidence that would tip the balance completely, came from a direction Mason hadn't expected. The disappearance of their lawnmower the previous month had prompted Mason to quietly install a hidden camera in the garage, more for caution than suspicion. But what the footage eventually revealed was far more troubling than a simple case of theft. The recordings showed Danny and Travis digging through his private storage. They weren't just nosy. They were actively searching for something specific. "He must have stashed it somewhere," Travis said, his voice clearly audible. "If he's holding anything against us, it'll be nearby," he added, scanning the room. Danny, sorting through boxes of Mason's former police gear, offered a more sinister suggestion. "What if we just plant something?" she said. "A few pills, or make it look like he's drinking again." Travis shook his head. "Too risky. We stick to the original plan. Remove him, take control of the narrative." Mason sat motionless as he watched the woman he'd been married to for nearly a decade calmly scheme to destroy his reputation. She wasn't just walking away, she was aiming to obliterate what remained of his life. Friday morning unfolded like any other, wrapped in the illusion of normalcy. Danny blended her usual protein smoothie, gave Eli a goodbye kiss, and headed off to her gym session as if everything was fine. Exactly 30 minutes after she left, Mason got in his car and drove to Gritfit, not for a confrontation but to gather solid evidence. The parking lot was nearly empty. Only two vehicles caught his attention, Danny's white Range Rover and Travis's black truck. Peering through the front windows, Mason spotted them inside, seated close together on the gym floor, not working out, but engaged in a quiet, intense conversation. He parked across the street, pulled out his telephoto lens, and began snapping photo after photo, capturing their closeness in crisp detail. But the photos themselves weren't the real breakthrough. It was what happened moments later that gave Mason the upper hand. Travis's business partner, Jake, showed up, clearly expecting a professional meeting. Though Mason couldn't hear the exchange, their body language said enough. Jake pointed toward Danny and then at Travis, his movements sharp and angry. Voices were raised, gestures became more animated, and eventually Jake stormed out, clearly furious. Curious, Mason decided to follow. Jake walked 3 blocks to a nearby cafe and settled at a corner table. Mason entered soon after and approached with purpose. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Jake glanced up, instantly recognizing him. "You're Danny's husband, the cop, right?" "Former cop," Mason said as he slid into the seat, "and soon-to-be ex-husband if she gets her way." He nodded toward the earlier scene. That looked intense. Jake gave a bitter laugh. "Travis is blowing up everything we built, for her. We were supposed to be equals, but now he's dipping into gym funds to play sugar daddy. Security deposits, expensive dinners. He's even talking about getting her a car." He sighed and leaned back. "I created Gritfit to make a difference, not to bankroll some twisted romance." "How much has he used?" Mason asked. Jake ran his fingers through his hair. "At least 15 grand, maybe more. He's in charge of the books, so I'm still trying to untangle everything." He leaned forward. "I don't know how she is at home, but at the gym, she's poison. He's not making decisions anymore. She is." Mason inched closer. "What if I told you there's a way to protect what's left of your business?" That afternoon, Mason met with attorney Patricia Hawks and laid everything out. GPS logs, hidden camera footage, audio clips from his property, suspicious financial records, and Jake's detailed account of misused funds. "This is a solid foundation," Hawk said as she flipped through the materials. But we need to present it carefully. Too much at once could make us look vindictive. She paused, tapping her pen against a legal pad. We need you to appear composed and methodical, not emotional. What's our play? Mason asked. We go on the offensive, she replied. We file now. That way we control the story before they get a chance to. Pulling out her phone, she added, I'm calling in a favor with Judge Morrison. We'll request an emergency custody hearing. Claim your wife is planning to move your son without notifying the court. You think that argument will stand? Mason asked. She met his eyes. Mason, your wife's about to find out what it means to be married to a trained investigator. You've been collecting pieces. She's been playing checkers and you've been playing chess. By the end of the day, the court hearing was set for the upcoming Tuesday. Mason spent the weekend tying up loose ends, meticulously combing through witness accounts, organizing documentation, and most importantly, having sincere, age-appropriate conversations with Eli about what was happening in their family. Dad, are you and Mom splitting up? Eli asked softly as they pieced together a blanket fort in the living room, a weekend tradition that now carried the weight of uncertainty. It's not so simple, buddy, Mason said with gentle honesty. Sometimes grown-ups can't stay together, but that doesn't change how much we both care about you. Will I still get to live here? Eli asked, glancing around the room filled with crayon doodles, Lego towers, and photographs of happier times. I don't know for sure, Mason admitted, but wherever I am, you'll always have a home. That evening, Danny returned from yet another so-called training session with Travis, her cheeks flushed, her demeanor distant, her mind already elsewhere. She moved through their home like it was a hotel lobby, quietly gathering items and sorting through envelopes with detached efficiency. Mason, she began, lowering herself onto the very sofa where Eli's blanket fort had stood earlier. I've been reflecting on our conversation from last week. Maybe it's best we start the trial separation sooner. I could take Eli to my sister's for the weekend, give you some breathing room. No, Mason said sharply, his tone leaving no room for debate. Danny paused, caught completely off guard. Excuse me? I said no, Mason repeated. Eli stays here. This is his home. His school is nearby, his friends are here. If you want to leave, that's your choice. But you're not taking our son with you. For the first time, Danny's practiced composure began to slip. Mason, be reasonable. You can't handle this on your own. Your injuries, your dash. My PTSD doesn't disqualify me from being a father, he cut in, his voice unwavering. And a damaged leg doesn't make me any less capable of protecting my kid. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, he shot back. The same thing you've been saying to Travis. And to your attorney. Rising to his feet, Mason straightened himself fully. Though his limp was still present, his stature commanded the room. You thought I wouldn't put it together? Danny looked shaken now, the cracks in her mask showing. I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm talking about the GPS history, the texts, the apartment viewings in Charlotte, and Travis, pulling cash out of his own business to bankroll your little escape plan. Her face went ghostly white. I know the whole scheme, Danny. The only question now is how you're going to react. Stunned silence gave way to outrage. You've been spying on me? She snapped. That's illegal, Mason. You're violating my rights. This is stalking. I followed every legal step, he replied coldly. Tracking a vehicle I partially own, photographing what I saw from public space, reviewing our shared finances. Every bit of it holds up in court. His tone shifted, no longer just a husband confronting betrayal, but a former detective laying out his case. I may be retired, but I still know how to gather admissible evidence. You're twisted, she spat. This proves you're mentally unfit. You're a danger. No judge would give you custody. You're wrong, Mason replied evenly. It proves I'm methodical, stable, and prepared. Exactly the kind of parent Eli deserves. Danny stood, her hands shaking now. Travis was right. You're obsessive. You're trying to control everything. This isn't over, Mason. No, he agreed. But it's not going to play out the way you thought. That same night, Danny made a reckless choice. Instead of retreating to reassess, She acted impulsively, and it cost her. At 2 a.m., Mason's surveillance footage captured her and Travis attempting to break into the garage, clearly trying to locate and destroy the evidence he had so carefully collected. The motion sensors clicked on, flooding the driveway with sharp white light as Mason stepped into view, outlined in the doorway, phone raised and already recording. "Looking for something?" he asked, his voice measured and calm. Travis took a few steps forward, his body tense and broad from countless hours at the gym, his presence darkening the space between them. "Back off, Gimp," he snarled. "This doesn't concern you. It's between me and Danny." Mason stood his ground. "Actually, this is criminal trespass. And now it's documented." He lifted the phone slightly higher. "Give the jury a wave, Travis." "You think you're smart?" Travis shot back. "Let's see how clever you feel when everyone hears about your meltdowns, your PTSD, the meds, your rage. No court's gonna hand a kid to a time bomb with a badge history." Unfazed, Mason kept recording. "Interesting theory. Can you remind me when I supposedly had these outbursts?" "Cut the act. Everyone remembers what happened after that bust. You've been a mess ever since, probably still reaching for your gun in your sleep." Travis couldn't stop himself now, words tumbling faster, unaware he was digging his own grave. "I've seen your type. Just one bad day away from hurting someone. That boy deserves better than a damaged has-been." Mason's expression didn't shift. "Anything else you'd like to go on record?" Danny stirred at last, grabbing Travis by the arm. "Stop, he's recording." But Travis was too fired up to hear her. "She needs a real man, not a limping charity case. I'm going to give her everything you couldn't, and I'll make sure that kid is protected from you too." Mason calmly stopped the recording and gave a faint, satisfied smile. "Perfect, that's all I needed." The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Thursday. Mason arrived early, joined by his attorney, Patricia Hawks, who carried several thick folders and a tablet loaded with supporting materials. Presiding over the matter was Judge Morrison, a stern, no-nonsense woman in her 60s, known for her aversion to theatrics and tolerance for manipulation. She opened the session briskly, eyes scanning the files before her. "Mr. Decker, you're requesting an expedited change to custody based on claims of parental alienation and unauthorized relocation plans. Mrs. Decker, your counter-motion seeks sole custody, citing psychological instability on your husband's part. Let's move on to the evidence." Hawks presented their case with meticulous clarity. GPS logs showed Danny had lied about her whereabouts. Screenshots unveiled her hidden attempts to alter custody arrangements. Bank records highlighted secretive financial maneuvers ahead of the divorce. Photos confirmed the affair. But the most damning piece was the garage footage. Travis's hostile intrusion, his inflammatory accusations regarding Mason's mental state, and his unlawful entry, all of it captured on video. The footage cast both Danny and her boyfriend as manipulative and volatile. "Your Honor," Hawks said in closing, "Mr. Decker handled a painful and personal betrayal with restraint. Instead of reacting, he documented. While Mrs. Decker endangered her son's stability to pursue her own agenda, my client acted with foresight and composure, always putting the child's needs first." Danny's attorney tried to shift focus back to Mason's psychological record, his trauma history, use of medication, and physical injury. But lacking the fabricated proof they had allegedly planned to manufacture, their argument dissolved under scrutiny. Judge Morrison closed the final binder with deliberate weight, her eyes fixed coldly on Danny. "Mrs. Decker, your behavior throughout this case reveals a concerning pattern: deception, financial concealment, and involving a minor in matters far beyond his comprehension." "Your Honor," Danny interjected, "everything I did was to protect my son from an unstable situation you played a central role in creating," the judge interrupted sharply. "Infidelity, secrecy, manipulation. You don't get to rewrite the story now." Her tone was razor-edged. "Mr. Decker will retain primary custody. You will have supervised visitation until a comprehensive psychological evaluation is conducted." With a swift strike of the gavel, the hearing concluded. As Mason walked out of the courthouse, he felt a breath leave his lungs, one he hadn't realized he'd been holding for weeks. but he understood this wasn't the end. Over the following weeks, the fallout from Danny's choices would quietly dismantle everything she had tried to preserve, one piece at a time. Danny's profitable contract with a popular supplement company abruptly ended after Mason's attorney handed over text messages that revealed her contempt for pretending to be a doting mother just to boost her brand, and her blunt admission that she intended to abandon her family. Soon after, another brand dropped her, a wellness-focused lifestyle company that had featured her prominently in a campaign celebrating real motherhood. Once the infidelity and custody battle came to light, they cut ties without hesitation. Even with more than 300,000 followers on social media, her influence dissolved almost overnight. Once people realized her public persona was a fabrication, the foundation of her online presence collapsed. Travis's downfall, however, was even more spectacular. Thanks to Jake's decision to aid Mason's legal strategy, it was revealed that Travis had quietly stolen $15,000 from his gym's finances. The business partnership imploded, and he soon found himself entangled in both civil litigation and criminal proceedings. The culmination of everything came during Asheville's prestigious annual charity gala, the very event Danny had bet on to restore her public image. She had pleaded for a speaking opportunity, hoping to reframe her narrative as one of hardship and resilience, casting herself as a misunderstood figure rather than the architect of her own ruin. Mason arrived well after the event had begun, dressed sharply, walking with barely a limp. His physical therapy progress accelerated now that he no longer woke up next to deception. Funny how much faster a body heals when the emotional poison is gone. Danny was already mid-speech when she caught sight of him at the back of the room. Her carefully rehearsed delivery faltered the moment she noticed the folder in his hand. "As I was saying," she began again, her voice shaky, "sometimes the people closest to us hold us back." "Pardon me," Mason said, standing up. His voice rang out with steady authority, commanding the attention of the entire hall. "I think there's been a mix-up regarding who should be speaking tonight." Heads turned, conversations hushed, whispers spread like sparks through dry brush. The local media had followed every twist of the custody hearings. They knew about Travis's arrest. Mason, decorated officer, wounded in the line of duty, betrayed by his wife, had quietly become a symbol of perseverance. "Mason, don't do this," Danny begged from the stage, panic creeping into her tone. "Please don't turn this into a spectacle." "This isn't a spectacle," Mason replied evenly. "It's a necessary correction." He began walking toward the stage, the folder still visible in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said calmly, "inside this folder is undeniable proof that the woman currently addressing you committed adultery, diverted shared funds for personal use, tried to rig a custody battle by manipulating the legal system, and even conspired to frame me for substance abuse." Gasps rippled through the audience. A few attendees raised their phones and started recording. "And in addition," Mason continued, "the man she was involved with, Travis Colt, has been formally charged for embezzling gym funds to sustain their relationship. This is the person your organization selected to represent values like integrity and community." One of the event organizers hurried to the stage, her voice brittle with urgency. "Mrs. Decker, I think it's time we ended your segment." Danny's face went pale, then flushed red with fury. "This is slander," she screamed. "He's obsessed with ruining me." "No," Mason answered, voice quiet but resolute. "You ruined yourself. I'm just telling the truth." Security arrived moments later. As they escorted her out, Danny's protests turned frantic, her voice echoing through the hall, growing more unhinged with each step. No one moved. The room remained hushed, watching as a nearly 10-year marriage imploded, not behind closed doors, but under bright lights and full public scrutiny. Mason declined the honorarium he was offered for attending, and instead donated the sum to a nonprofit that supports veterans and first responders dealing with PTSD. Half a year later, Mason stood in his backyard, watching Eli soar through the air on a swing they had built together only a few days earlier. The boys' laughter rang out across the lawn, pure, joyful, and unburdened by the silent tension that had once filled their home. Danny had moved to Charlotte, starting over at a modest fitness center while trying to repair both her reputation and her finances. Her once booming online presence had dwindled to just a few hundred followers, mostly distant family or people unaware of her fall from grace. Eli saw her twice a month now, under supervision. The visits were cordial but distant. Travis had completed a 6-month stint in county jail. He now worked on a construction site, his gym long gone, his former success buried under unpaid debts and a mountain of lawsuits. All the posturing and steroids in the world hadn't shielded him from accountability. Mason's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. It was a message from Patricia Hawkes. The final divorce paperwork had been filed. The house was officially his, full custody granted, most shared assets awarded. The judgment was clean, balanced, and just. "Push me higher, Dad," Eli shouted, grinning from the swing. Mason stepped forward, gripped the chains, and gave a strong push, watching his son rise against the backdrop of the Blue Ridge Mountains. His leg barely twinged now. The physical injury had always been bearable. It was the betrayal that had hurt the most. With calm restored in his life, Mason noticed that his healing process had finally picked up real momentum. That evening, after tucking Eli into bed, he took a seat on the front porch with a cold beer, embracing the quiet sense of closure that comes at the end of a long, painful road. His phone screen lit up with 17 missed calls from Danny, no doubt more pleased to amend custody agreements or ask for money. He made a mental note to contact Hawkes in the morning and pass it along. Moments later, headlights swung into the driveway and a car came to a stop. Jake stepped out, wearing a grin and holding a bottle of bourbon under one arm. "Thought this called for a proper toast," Jake said as he sank into the chair next to Mason. "Travis got evicted today. Turns out losing gym revenue makes rent tough." "I heard," Mason replied with a nod. "How's your new place coming along?" "Better than expected. Seems like people actually care about integrity after all." Jake uncapped the bottle and poured 2 drinks into the glasses Mason had just fetched. "I owe you more than I can say. You didn't just keep my gym afloat, you probably kept me from falling apart too." "You stood tall when it mattered," Mason said simply. "That counts more than anything money can buy." They sat in companionable silence, watching the fireflies flicker through the yard. A rare stillness settled over Mason, a kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. There were no more lies lurking behind smiles, no betrayals waiting to strike, no traps disguised as affection, just truth, laid bare. His phone vibrated again. Danny's name flashed across the screen, but he let it ring through to voicemail. Whatever problem she was dealing with now, it wasn't his responsibility anymore. He'd spent too long carrying the weight of someone who twisted his devotion into something to exploit. Never again. The next morning brought an unexpected call. His former precinct captain reached out to offer him a new opportunity. A specialized unit had just been created to investigate domestic violence cases, and they were looking for someone with Mason's unique mix of field skills and personal insight. "You've walked through fire, Decker," the captain told him, "but you handled it with poise and clarity. We need that kind of perspective on this team." Mason didn't hesitate, he accepted on the spot. It wouldn't be an easy job, but it would be meaningful. He'd be helping others navigate the same kind of trauma he had endured. Thanks to his medical classification, the role offered flexible hours and full benefits, perfect for managing both his duties and time with Eli. Eli was thrilled. "Are you going to be a detective again, Dad? Something close to it, buddy. Will you catch people like Mommy and Travis?" "In a way. I'll mostly be helping folks who got hurt by people they trusted. Like what happened with us?" Exactly like that. On his first day in the office, Mason arrived to find a welcome card waiting on his desk. It was from the entire domestic violence unit. Inside, a brief message read, "Welcome back, Detective. We're proud to have you aboard." More than 20 signatures filled the card, but one in particular stood out: Captain Wilson's personal note. The best detectives are often the ones who've survived the toughest battles. Mason smiled and tucked the card into his drawer, placing it beside a photo of Eli on his first day of 2nd grade. Somehow it felt like life had completed a full loop. Half a year later, Danny made one last push to disrupt the stability Mason had built. She filed a motion in court, claiming Mason's new position conflicted with her visitation schedule, hoping to regain some control over the custody arrangement. The court dismissed it within 24 hours. Judge Morrison ruled that Mason had consistently demonstrated growth, stability, and responsibility, while Danny's actions continued to reveal a pattern of prioritizing her preferences over their child's best interests. That very night, Mason received a phone call that would shift his world once again. "Detective Decker? This is Special Agent Sarah Mills with the FBI. I understand you recently worked a case involving financial misconduct tied to someone named Travis Colt." "That's right, Agent Mills. Has something new come up?" "Mr. Colt's fraudulent activity is linked to a larger criminal network, one involving sham supplement companies and deceptive influencer operations. We'd like to talk about how you handled the investigation." The words came with unspoken respect. Mason's precision and diligence had earned him serious credibility, even among career agents. 1 week later, he found himself across the table from Agent Mills in a low-key federal building just outside town. What had started as a simple case of financial misconduct involving Travis had unraveled into a widespread operation, one riddled with fraudulent influencers, fake supplement promotions, and sophisticated laundering schemes. Digital evidence had proved crucial. Danny's text threads, curated social media presence, and carefully managed persona provided the connective tissue between multiple suspects. "Have you thought about taking on more cases like this?" Mills asked. "We need people who can bridge the gap between online deception and real-world investigative work." It was more than a compliment. The role came with a pay rate nearly triple what Mason had made at the department. Within a year, his contract earnings gave him the freedom to leave behind the bureaucracy of law enforcement and focus exclusively on federal consulting. But what really mattered wasn't the paycheck. It was the sense of purpose. His work now uncovered corruption that stretched across state lines. The case expanded into 6 states, culminating in 47 federal indictments. Travis, facing overwhelming evidence, agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. Danny never faced formal charges, but her public image was shattered in the aftermath. Sponsors vanished, partnerships dissolved, her social media influence disintegrated almost overnight. Eventually, she landed a front desk position at a modest hotel in Charlotte, miles away from the polished image she once projected. Mason saw her one last time at Eli's middle school graduation. She sat quietly in the back row, unnoticed by most, while Mason found a seat near the stage, flanked by Hawks, Jake, and others who had become like brothers through adversity. After the event, she approached him slowly in the parking lot. "I just wanted to tell you, you've done an incredible job," she said softly. "Eli always talks about you." "He's an amazing kid," Mason said. "We both helped make him who he is." Her appearance had changed. The self-assured glow was gone, replaced by fatigue and a quiet kind of humility. The confident edge had dulled into something softer, perhaps regret. "I've made terrible decisions," she said, "ones I can't take back. I'm not asking for anything. I finally see what I lost." Mason looked at her with cautious clarity, half waiting for a performance. But what he saw was something stripped bare, a woman with no masks left. "It wasn't just your mistakes," he said. "It was how deliberate the harm was. How calculated." He paused, letting the bitterness pass before offering a different tone. "But you're still Eli's mother. He needs both of us to show up for him." She gave a faint, grateful nod, tears starting to form. "Thank you. That means more than you probably realize." They said goodbye without tension or blame, just two people who once imagined a future together and watched it collapse in spectacular fashion. That night, Mason and Eli stuck to their tradition. Pizza first, then a round of ice cream to mark another milestone. "Dad, are you happy?" Eli asked between bites, chocolate smeared on his cheek. Mason smiled at the question. "Yeah, buddy. I really am." What about you? I like how things are now, Eli said. It's not all messed up like before. Mason laughed quietly. His son had a gift for saying exactly what needed to be said. Yeah, it's calm now. Later, Mason sat at his desk, digging into a fresh case from California. Another influencer, another fabricated persona, another tangled mess waiting to be untangled. But even as he focused, his thoughts wandered, to Little League, to the Grand Canyon trip they'd planned, to the quiet, steady rhythm of a life rebuilt from scratch. He noticed a missed call from Danny. No second attempt, just a simple voicemail. Thanks for being such a great dad. Eli's lucky to have you. He deleted it without hesitation. There would be more cases, more evidence to review, more people counting on his ability to cut through lies. But tonight, Mason let it all fade. He moved through the house, flipping switches, locking up. In Eli's room, he tucked in his sleeping son and pressed a kiss to his forehead. Eli mumbled something in his sleep about baseball and best friends. And Mason lingered there for a moment, grateful for the stillness, the truth, and the hard-earned strength that had carried them both to this peaceful, honest life. Mason stood silently at the threshold, taking in the serene image of his child asleep, resting in a home that now stood on a foundation of honesty instead of pretense. This, he understood, was the true shape of victory. Not fiery confrontations or dramatic gestures, but the steady calm of peace earned through perseverance and principle. His phone buzzed softly, another message from Agent Mills, this one regarding a new assignment in Denver that needed his expertise. He glanced at the screen, then placed the phone aside with a quiet, satisfied smile. That could wait until morning. Stepping onto the porch, he drew a deep breath of the cool mountain night. Somewhere across the city, his ex-wife was likely battling sleeplessness, haunted by decisions she couldn't undo. And in some drab facility, Travis was adjusting to the harsh realities of life with a criminal record and a future diminished by his own actions. But Mason didn't take pleasure in their decline. He didn't see justice as revenge. It was simply the rightful outcome of people's decisions coming back to meet them. His role had been to ensure those consequences were just and proportionate. A car rolled by on the silent street, headlights briefly lighting up the for sale sign in the Kowalski's yard. Nice neighbors. Maybe they were heading to Florida to be closer to their grandchildren. Mason made a mental note to check the price on the listing. It might be a smart move, potential rental income, or a step toward securing Eli's future education. It felt natural now to plan ahead, no longer burdened by the emotional chaos that had clouded his years with Danny. Hope, untethered from manipulation and false promises, felt genuine. He turned back inside, locked the door, and headed for bed. Sunday was coming. Pancakes in the morning with Eli, followed by practice and a few errands. What once felt like mundane routine now held the quiet dignity of a life reclaimed. He had faced down the people who tried to dismantle his world, and emerged whole. Not through fury or retribution, but with calm determination and an unwavering commitment to the truth. In the stillness of his darkened room, Mason let a faint smile form as sleep overtook him. The nightmares had ceased. And now, his dreams weren't about escaping the past, but creating something far stronger in its place.